Have you ever walked through your city and felt like you've crossed some kind of invisible line? You know, one minute you're on a shiny, bustling street, and the next, you're in a neighborhood that feels completely left behind. That feeling? It's not an accident. Today we're going to break down why our cities are designed to be unfair, using the powerful ideas of geographer David Harvey. Let's get into it.
And look, this is not some new 21st century problem. We're talking way back in 1845. Friedrich Engels was describing Manchester, England as a city where the rich could literally travel down these grand avenues, totally shielded from the poverty that was fueling their wealth. This quote just hammers home how long this has been going on.
Okay, so we get it. The division is real. We can see it, we can feel it, and history backs it up. But that leads us to the big question, the one we're here to tackle. Why? Why are our cities so consistently, so predictably unequal?
All right, to even start answering that, we've got to zoom out a bit, because this tale of two cities isn't just about Manchester or your hometown. It's a global pattern that we see again and again and again.
Take a look at this. The writer Frantz Fanon paints this incredibly vivid picture of a colonial city. I mean, listen to this contrast. On one side, you have a town that's well-fed, brightly lit, easygoing, and on the other, a hungry town, a town on its knees. This isn't just poetry, you know? It's a description of a physical reality. It's the same thing Engels saw in Manchester, and it proves this is a worldwide thing.
So if this is happening everywhere, what's the standard explanation? What are we usually told? Well, it almost always comes back to one thing: simple economics. The story goes that it's just the natural way the free market works. There's this classic economic theory called the bid-rent curve. The idea is pretty simple. Land is most expensive right in the city center. Now, if you're wealthy, you can afford to live farther away in a bigger place and just pay for the commute. But if you're poor, you need to save every penny on transportation. That means you're forced to compete for that super expensive land near the center. And how can you possibly afford it? Well, you cram more and more people into smaller and smaller spaces. From this point of view, inequality is just logical. Unfortunate maybe, but logical. And this right here is where David Harvey just completely flips the script. He comes in and says, yeah, okay, the theory works. It totally predicts that the poor will get squeezed into these overcrowded, high-rent areas. But here's the twist. While an economist might pat themselves on the back for a successful theory, Harvey says that's a perfect description of a deeply unjust system. For Harvey, that theory isn't a success story. It's Exhibit A for what's fundamentally broken.
And that's our cue to dive into the real heart of Harvey's argument. He says if you really want to understand your city, you can't just look at real estate prices. You have to look at the engine driving the whole show, capitalism itself.
And that engine? It runs on one specific kind of fuel, something called surplus value. The super simple version? It's the value a worker produces after you've already paid for their time and labor. It's where all the profit comes from. Think of it as the system's massive amount of leftover energy. So, what do you think is capitalism's single biggest problem? Is it competition, regulation, something else? Well, Harvey argues it's something way more basic. The system's biggest problem is its own success. Seriously, it generates this massive ocean of surplus profit, and that cash has to go somewhere. It has to be reinvested to make even more profit. If it can't find a new place to go, the whole machine just seizes up and you get a crisis.
Okay, so this slide breaks it all down. Step 1, the system cranks out tons of surplus profit. Step 2, that surplus needs a home. It has to be reinvested. But step 3, sometimes it runs out of places to go. That's when you get a crisis. So what's the solution? You have to find a massive project that can just soak up all that extra capital. And what's one of the biggest, most expensive projects humanity has ever come up with? Building and then rebuilding our cities. So urbanization isn't just a background for capitalism. No, it's one of the main solutions to capitalism's biggest problem. It's the ultimate pressure release valve.
But here's the thing. Soaking up all that extra cash, it's not a gentle process. It's messy. It's often violent. It's what the economist Joseph Schumpeter famously called creative destruction.
And you can literally trace this pattern through history. You got Baron Haussmann in the 1850s just plowing through working-class neighborhoods in Paris to build those famous boulevards, a gigantic project that absorbed a ton of capital. Flash forward 100 years, you got Robert Moses doing the same thing in New York, famously taking a meat axe to the Bronx to build his highways. And then our own lifetimes, we've seen China's insane urban boom, using up almost half the world's cement since 2000, all to find a home for its massive surplus. It's the same cycle, just getting bigger and bigger.
Harvey has a name for this whole process. He calls it accumulation by dispossession. And it's exactly what it sounds like. It's a process of taking valuable stuff, usually land, from people who can't fight back, to make way for something more profitable. You see it in things like forced evictions, sure, but you also see it in modern gentrification, where entire communities get priced out of their own neighborhoods. It is the very real human cost of all that creative destruction.
And to make this crystal clear, Harvey makes this really chilling prediction about Rio de Janeiro. He basically bets that the favelas, which just happen to be sitting on some of the most beautiful, valuable real estate in the city, will eventually be wiped out and replaced with luxury condos. You see the logic here, right? It's the inevitable endgame of this process. The most profitable use for the land always wins, no matter who's living there.
Okay, so that's a pretty bleak picture. If that's the problem, what's the answer? And this is where we get to Harvey's big idea, maybe his most powerful one, the demand for something he calls the right to the city.
Now, we have to be really clear about what this means. It's not what you might think. A right in the city, that's just being able to use the parks, ride the subway. It's passive. You're just a consumer of the city. But the right to the city, that's something else entirely. It's an active right. It's the collective power to fundamentally change and remake the city ourselves. It's about deciding what kind of city gets built in the first place.
And if you want to know who currently has the right to the city, who's really in the driver's seat, just look at this number. $33.2 billion. That's how much Wall Street paid out in bonuses in 2007, the very same year the financial crisis kicked off, leading to 2 million people losing their homes. This tells you exactly who controls the surplus, and by extension, who gets to shape our cities.
So what does it actually mean to demand this right? Well, it means we, the people, get to have democratic control over the surplus that our collective work creates. It means taking back the power to shape the city-making process itself. And it means designing a city that's built for human needs, not just as a sponge to absorb extra capital.
So in the end, Harvey's idea is a huge challenge to how we think about our cities. The inequality, the invisible lines we feel every day, none of it is natural or inevitable. It's a choice. It's the result of a system. So the question he leaves us with isn't just about understanding the problem. It's about what we do next. If you had the power, what kind of city would you build?